We've talked about credit cards before. We've talked about rewards. Do you guys have credit cards? Any of you?
Not anymore.
Not anymore. But you've used them.
Yeah, until I didn't pay off the debt.
I actually thought about getting
They
a
don't like
credit
that.
card today.
They don't like
Another
that.
one.
Yeah,
Really?
they really don't.
Yeah.
They don't like it when you pay off the debt. Like,
Well, they don't like it when you don't pay off the debt.
they don't like it regardless. It's like, pick one.
They don't like it when you, okay, so I've heard, there's people that pay off their balance every month, right? And a lot of people say that and then they don't, or at some point they're going to carry a balance. But banks do consider them kind of like people who pay it off every month. It's like, like they don't get as much value out of them. Like they don't get any interest income because they pay it off. So yeah, the banks don't mind it so much. They get some money, but I think what they hate more is people who don't pay.
Wait, they hate them more or they love them more?
I shouldn't say they hate anybody. They love everybody. Banks love everybody.
No, maybe they hate us. Maybe.
But no, obviously if you don't pay, then they can still make money off of you, right? Like if you end up paying at some point in the future, you're going to pay a higher amount. You're going to pay some fees. I mean, they're still making money, but they expect that some percentage of people will not pay. And then, but right now, 7.2, or I think it's a little over 7% of consumers are seriously delinquent. They're over 90 days past due. And we are at record credit card debt with over $1.2 trillion. So in
Sounds
the U.S.
like the U.S. government.
We're in the trillions, right? But then your minimum payment's 2% of the balance. So you can pay that minimum payment for a really long time. It's just you're paying like 20, 30% sometimes in interest.
I mean, I don't think we would have this high of a debt if people were able to pay with the wages that they're earning. I mean, you got everything going to be expensive and wages being stagnant. So people respond to that by being like, okay, I'll put this on the credit card, but it's their rent or their car payment or their phone bill.
Yeah, you can transfer. You're not supposed to be able to pay debt with debt, like pay a loan with a credit card, but there are ways to do it, right? Like balance transfer or something like that. I mean, you can just keep moving those debts around to where you never end up paying them off and you're always in debt. There's also this idea, I heard somebody say, like, the cost of being broke. Everything costs more.
Yeah, that's true.
Mm-hmm.
Because you got to buy, you got to be careful about what you buy, and you're paying more for it, right? Depending on where you're going. You're using credit cards and debt to buy those things, so you're paying interest. It's like, if you're broke, you're going to get even more. Although, you know what? I did hear about these two girls that went and batted their eyelids to talk some guys at AutoZone into fixing their car. Have y'all ever heard a story like that?
Are you being serious right now? Did you tell him?
Yeah, you gotta get savvy.
Wait, is that about us?
I've got to know more about that. How in the world? See,
Multiple times.
Last time I went there, I got a bunch of stuff for my new car. And I said, give me your employee discount. And it was 50% off
he
the
did?
whole thing. Yeah.
That is insane. 50.
No, I got everything for the price of my steering wheel cover.
It's
It
crazy.
was like $23.
And those guys fixed your car too, right? Your other car?
100%, yeah.
They were down bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, he did want to take me on a date, but
There was that.
He has
but I
a
didn't
wife.
let him. Wait,
He was married?
Should we tell him
Yeah,
about
but
what
they're
just happened?
separated. You just gotta do what you gotta do, and
When you got to
God
do it.
provides for you. Sometimes
You
AutoZone
might have to
employees.
bat your eyelids a bit,
Yeah.
but
They might have been angels. They're
Yeah.
sent
No,
there to help you.
seriously.
You sometimes have to stand in the AutoZone line. It can get long. Start sweating.
legs start hurting.
You got your baby with you. Like,
God, it's kind of a lot. I
You
think it was
worked for that.
50%.
I've
is
never
a
heard of that
deal.
before. I think it's great. I couldn't do it. I don't think I could convince
Have
them.
you tried?
No, I've never tried.
That's your problem.
That might be it.
Yeah, you
Yeah,
know.
that's your problem. You
But
have to
one
go
guy,
try.
you know what? One guy did help me. Like,
You have good eyelashes too.
We're gonna find one woman at AutoZone. Which,
oh, I bet she gets hit on all the time. But
You think?
if I ask nicely,
it.
you don't think so?
No.
Okay. Well, why weren't we talking about credit cards?
You brought this
You
up.
brought it up.
you did bring it up.
I did bring that up. That's right. I just still think that's so funny.
He called us broke.
I didn't call you broke. I said batted your
She
So
said-
eyelids.
broke that you have to bat your eyelashes at
She gets it.
AutoZone to be like, "Pretty, please fix my car."
Was it like that?
Yeah, basically.
Well, I just said that there's a cost of being broke, but in some situations, it's like
Doesn't matter.
so.
Credit cards, debt.
Credit cards. The credit card rates are in their 20s or 30s, and savings interest rate is like 1%. Like, there's no reason to save if you have credit card debt. You might as well just pay off your debt.
Pretty much.
Who does that? Do you pay your debt off?
Are you
If
in
I can.
debt at all?
Sure, yeah. Of
Like
course.
how much?
His house.
This house, yeah,
Oh, that
I don't
makes
own this house. Oh man, conversation.
What
went
other
in
kind
a
of
way
debt do you have? Are you a gambler?
No, never been a problem for me. I've gambled a little bit, but I never got into a lot of trouble with it.
That's good.
I've had friends who made more money than me and needed to borrow money because they had lost so much gambling. Online too. Like, you can't trust that stuff.
Online? That's crazy.
I mean, online gambling is so easy to access for anybody, though. I mean, it's not
It
like
is.
Like
you're right.
sports
it's not
bets
like
or
you're going to
there's
a
legit-
casino and getting age restricted.
I totally agree. Like, it's just not as legitimate to.
And then there's all the gambling ads now.
Oh, they're nonstop. Mm-hmm. Download this, and it's a star. It's somebody you trust. Mm-hmm. Download this app. Mm-hmm. Get $500 free.
Like, why go to Vegas when it's in your phone?
That's crazy.
I
I've
always
seen
think
those.
I'm
I know
going to
what
win.
you're talking about.
When I gamble or buy a lottery ticket, I
Like
feel like
influencers?
positive and like a positive attitude is what it takes, and I always
Win?
I never win.
Oh,
No.
I don't
Sometimes
think you would win.
I you know what? I did get once 5 out of 6 numbers in the lotto.
That's wait.
Crazy.
Didn't you win
That's
some
the
money
difference.
though?
That's the difference between I won $600.
For getting 5 of them, right?
One more number, it would have been $1 million.
No.
And I had bought 2 tickets, and that missing number was on the next line.
What?
No lie.
Oh, rough.
Should have at least
Go
got
buy
like
another one.
$5,000.
Oh, I have plenty of times. Never gotten that close again. I took all of the winning numbers from like the last 6 months because they post all of them, and I put it in a spreadsheet, and I analyzed the ones that had been picked the most over the last 6 months. Then I looked the last 2 months, the last 1 month, and I came up with those 2 sets of numbers of the most likely. And then I got the 5 out of 6. And of course I tried it again. It never worked again. So somebody told me I just got lucky.
I don't
That's
know.
wild, though.
Should have kept trying.
Nothing is truly random, right?
Yeah, no.
So it's based on something. And if you look long enough, you'll see some trend. But
This is what we're gonna do.
no, I've tried.
Flashy queen over here.
Don't
tried
tell
it
me
here.
no.
I've tried it. You can try it. I've tried it here, and I tell you, it's
You were missing something. Maybe
You
I
can
have
find
it.
yeah.
Yeah.
You know, with your actuary skills.
He gave up too quickly. Could have
Oh,
made
n-
another spreadsheet. Could have been like, let's do this again.
Oh no, I've done it many times. It only worked that one time.
Probably because you doubted yourself after that first time.
That's what it was. I
Yep.
didn't have the
The
confidence.
doubt.
Every time I buy a lottery ticket, I'm like, I'm gonna win. Like
I
seriously,
just bought one today.
did you?
I won $5.
Really?
How much was it? $1 ticket?
Yeah, it was something like that. Or like $2.
Yeah. Every once in a while I'll get them, and I just it's never. Now I don't. It never works out.
No.
I used to win drawings all the time, like randomly. Like I would always win a drawing. Like there was a point in time where
Like
I
what
was
kind of drawing?
like at my work, they did a drawing for a bicycle.
What's
won the bike.
what's going on
I
with the
wanna-
bruises over
I
there?
did that one time. Did she beat you?
Oh, that's Jiu-Jitsu. Man, that's...
Oh wow!
Wait, you do that?
Oh yeah, he does actually.
Oh, yeah.
Is that what-
you get these bruises all the time.
Right.
You get cuts on your face and stuff. They don't punch, but it's
Do you
wrestling.
wear like a karate suit or?
It's a gi.
Picture him?
Yeah.
You just look like a domestic
Show us
violence victim.
Show us
I
a
know.
move,
Just-
Addie. Go ahead, get up. Let him. You can be the tester.
Oh,
No, I don't want to hurt you.
I don't
Because
think
once
you
I get
could,
in the
though.
zone, you know,
You black out.
black out. I can't tell you how many times it's happened.
She just has to bat the eyelashes. Be like, pretty please, don't hurt me. Don't.
You try. You
That
try.
is fucked up. I was
No,
going to
there's-
say something.
Yeah,
What were we talking about before jiu-jitsu?
Credit cards.
Credit cards. Oh, drawings.
Lottery.
Oh
Lotteries.
yeah, I won a drawing one time. I won a $100 gift card to a smoke shop.
Oh, that's a cool one.
That was only one time though. It was a long time ago. Do you like weed? Yeah, she does.
You don't have to say anything.
I won a bowl, a like $100 bowl, but they gave me two things. It was only $100, but they gave me a bowl and they gave me a rig, like
Oh.
a dab rig.
Oh.
No, I was like, oh thanks. I don't smoke weed.
Where did
anymore,
you?
though.
What drawing was it at the
Just a
location?
random one that I looked up on the internet. They called me and I was like, what? It's like I want some free shit from the smoke shop.
How can you turn that down?
Oh, exactly.
Let's
watch
watch this
it.
video on government waste and sending money to dead people with our favorite Senator Kennedy.
Mr. President.
Senator from Louisiana.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, with me today are two of my colleagues from my Senate office, Mr. John Lowry and Mr. Jackson Bewley. I'm grateful for their good judgment, counsel, and advice. I am delighted, Mr. President, to see so many members of Congress, and I mean this sincerely, so many members of Congress embrace the call for a less wasteful federal government, for a more efficient federal government. We spend a little over $6 trillion a year, as Senator Sanders so eloquently pointed out. When you spend $6 trillion a year, somebody's getting $6 trillion a year. Every penny in our budget has a constituency, and that constituency will fight us. They will fight us. And I recognize that, and it's something that as we go about downsizing government, we have to be mindful of. However, there is one constituency that is not going to be able to fight us in our quest to scrutinize federal spending, and I'm referring to dead people. And that's what I want to talk about today. I want to talk about dead people and the fact that they're getting money from the federal government. In fiscal year 2023 alone, this is just 1 year, our government sent $1.3 billion, not $1.3 million. We sent $1.3 billion in checks to dead people. Those aren't my numbers. Those numbers come from the Office of Management and Budget. That's just 1 year. Not only is the federal government sending checks to dead people, those checks are being cashed. Now, I have heard, Mr. President, of dead people voting, but cashing the checks, you don't have to be God's perfect idiot to realize that there's fraud happening with respect to all this money. Here's how this problem arises. When you die in America, your name is sent to the Vital Records Office in your state. And at that point, the Social Security Administration pays each state to get an ongoing list of deceased Americans in that state. So far, so good. The Social Security Administration takes this data, this list of deceased people, and they compile on an ongoing basis a list called the Death Master File. The Death Master File. That's just a list of everybody, updated daily, of people in the United States who are deceased. Why does the Social Security Administration do this? Well, so the SSA, Social Security Administration, can stop sending people who have died checks. So far, so good. There's just one problem. I discovered this about 7 years ago. The Social Security Administration refuses to share that list with anybody else in the federal government. They won't share it with any other federal agencies, many of which send out checks. The Department of Treasury, for example, sends out checks. SSA won't share the information with them. The Small Business Administration sends out a lot of checks. The Social Security Administration has a list of all deceased Americans, but SSA will not share that information with the SBA. I'll give you some examples. You remember, Mr. President, when we were in the coronavirus crisis, we had an economic meltdown. We sent stimulus checks to Americans to try to keep the economy on its feet. We paid $1.4 billion to dead people, and they cashed the checks. The Paycheck Protection Program, which was a part of our stimulus program, paid out $38 million alone to dead people. These were people who were using, live people, obviously, who were using dead people's Social Security numbers to collect payments. The COVID-19 Economic Disaster Injury Disaster Loan Fund, another culprit, was involved in sending checks to dead people. The Department of Veterans Affairs, and I'm not blaming them, in many respects it's not their fault. A couple of years ago, a scam artist stole the Social Security number of a deceased person, deceased veteran, and received about $825,000 in checks from 1997 to 2024. Now, the person committing this fraud was just quietly accepting the checks. Somehow, the Department of Veterans Affairs, and for some reason, stopped sending that person the checks. So the fraudster just picked up the phone and called the Department of Veterans Affairs. He impersonated the dead person and convinced them to start sending the checks again. Again, not necessarily the fault of the Department of Veterans Affairs. The VA didn't know that the Social Security number belonged to a deceased person. Another example, a person in Ohio was able to collect her deceased mother's Veterans Affairs benefits for 48 years. 48 years before she was called. The truth is, Mr. President, it's sort of like being asked, you didn't go you didn't go fishing on Saturday. How many fish do you think you didn't catch? We don't know how much money we're sending out every year to dead people. Let me give you an example of how screwed up the data is, Mr. President. This is a strong indicator of what's wrong. The Social Security Administration, if you ask them, will tell you that there are, according to their records, there are 6.5 million Americans living today in America who are 112 years of age or older. They say there are 6.5 million Americans who are at least 112 years old or older. Now, I don't know about you, Mr. President, but I don't know anybody who's 112 years old. And I checked, at any given time, there are about 40 people on an ongoing basis in the world who are fortunate enough to live to be 112. But the data is so screwed up that according to SSA, 6.5 million people are 112 years old. A number of years ago, 7 years ago, I started working with Senator Tom Carper, a fine American, if there ever was one. I started working with Tom on this issue. I went to Social Security, and I said, look, this problem is easily solved. Just share the death master file with other agencies, and especially share it with the Department of Treasury. I don't want to confuse anyone, but the Department of Treasury has a do not pay list of people who aren't supposed to receive checks for a variety of reasons that other agencies consult. But I said to my friends at Social Security, why don't you just give the death master file to other agencies? They said, we can't. It's illegal. The way we construe our enabling statutes, we don't have the authority. Well, I said, okay, I'm not going to argue with them. We'll just go pass a law. It was harder than I thought, but we did. In 2020, Senator Carper and I passed a bill. The bill was called Stopping Improper Payments to Deceased People Act. And it gave the Social Security Administration permission, and indeed directed the Social Security Administration to start sharing its list of dead people with other agencies in the federal government. I don't want to get down in the weeds, but believe it or not, we had people oppose the legislation, and many people within the federal government. So in order to get our bill passed, we had to compromise. We had to agree to only implement this requirement that Social Security share the list of dead people with everybody else. We could only get them to agree to do it for 3 years for a trial program. This clock started ticking on our 3-year period in December of 2023. So obviously, 3 years is right upon us, and if we don't make this program permanent, it's going to expire in 2026. So Senator Carper and I have introduced another bill. It does basically the same thing as the 2020 bill, but it makes the program permanent. This new bill is called Ending Improper Payments to Deceased People Act. And we need to pass it. There's been a lot of squabbling back and forth. I don't want to do anything to step on too many toes to jeopardize my bill, but about how much the states are going to be paid and who's going to pay Social Security for sharing their dead person's list with the rest of the government. I think we have a lot of it worked out, but we need to go past this bill. I mean, this makes no sense whatsoever. I can understand if we talk about changing the Medicaid program, for example. What's fair, what's unfair. I can understand debating that, and I can understand reasonable people disagreeing over what changes, if any, we ought to make to the Medicaid program. I get it. I just listened to Senator Sanders once again speak very eloquently about the waste at the Department of Defense. That's something that reasonable people, all of whom agree that we ought to have a strong defense, but reasonable people can disagree over how to achieve that. But my God, you don't have to be Euclid to figure out that this is just fraud. It's abuse. It's low-hanging fruit, and it's so easily solved. All we have to do is direct the Social Security Administration on a permanent basis, not a three-year trial basis, on a permanent basis, to start sharing the list of dead people with the Department of Treasury and everybody else in federal government who wants it. And then everybody's on the same page, and we know who's deceased, and we can stop sending the money to dead people who cash the checks. Now, I'm talking about this now, Mr. President. I've talked about it before on the floor. I'm not going to try to pass the bill this year. I'm not. We're running up against the clock, and we have the NDAA. We have a CR to pass, and we've got to keep government open. We've got to renew the flood insurance program, and you know all that, Mr. President. But I'm going to be back. I'm like the Terminator. I will be back as soon as the new Congress is sworn in. Many of my colleagues have said to me, you know, it's time we stop talking about who needs to pay more in taxes and start talking about and asking the question with respect to what the hell happened to the money. And I agree with them. I can't think of an easier place to start. Let's just pass this simple bill. Let's stop sending money to dead people. Again, we can debate about the wisdom of dead people voting. We all know what happens. But cashing checks, that's a bridge too far. Thank you, Mr. President, for your time and attention. I suggest the absence of a quorum.
Clerk will call the roll.
All right, national debt is almost 100% of what the economy, like the gross domestic product, which means
Whoa.
we are not only have 100% of what, like, think about how much you make in a year and that's your debt, right? But we're adding $2 trillion a year to it. And it's just growing. And I mean, you know, you talk about this stuff with Doge, right?
Mm-hmm.
The doggy or whatever you would call it, D-O-G-E.
Did you do you have any Doge coins?
I might have some. I don't have many.
I think
Get a
I
few.
sold mine.
That's
I have
yet
some.
another one that I heard about when it was like 0.00001. So I was like, oh yeah, you should get Doge.
You've been missing out. You could have been
know.
rich right now.
I could be rich. Not sitting
Then,
here talking
yeah.
to you fools.
That's why you
down
aren't.
right now.
It is. Well, everything's down. I
Very
bet
down.
Bitcoin dropped like 10% or something, but
Did you get XRP?
No, I didn't.
I did.
Like $50
Or 10?
something.
Okay.
She said, okay.
What I think is interesting about the national debt is that, okay, like this is political, but it doesn't make sense to me why if you owed money, I wouldn't tell you to go and make like, like if you owed money and you had 2 jobs and you wanted to pay off that debt, I would be like, well, maybe there's another thing you can do on top of it. I wouldn't tell you, well, quit one of your jobs. And that's how I feel about it when we talk about, oh, we owe so much money, let's cut taxes.
Why should we pay off the national debt?
Because the national debt is we're Americans.
Did we decide on it?
We're Americans. We
picked
should
it?
pay off.
Has
We should be
nothing
the ones
to
to
do
pay
with
off.
us.
Doesn't.
We pay enough money.
Yeah, they
We
just
pay our
want to.
taxes.
They
We
just
pay our
want to
taxes.
pay. They just want to cut off the taxes for the rich.
Well, I mean, if you look at
Like,
why,
what's subtle about it is that, like, overall everybody is paying less taxes than they originally were like years ago. But the rich, it's like even lower than your average person.
Yeah.
So your average person
I agree.
is just paying more. And that's why they're trying to introduce all these tariffs
I
to
don't
make up for it.
I don't believe in trickle down economics. I think that if you're going to cut taxes, do it for the poorest people and go up to some amount. If I give a poor person $10,000 and I give a rich person $10,000, one of those people is going to spend it and put it back in the economy. And one of those people is going to save it and get wealthier, right? In my opinion, if you want to grow the economy then and help people at the same time, you don't give the tax cuts to the richest. You give them down here.
What's wrong with cutting all taxes? If we're tariffing other countries.
I mean, if you can get away with that, if you can do it and you can support the
Other countries don't want to be tariffed.
Yeah, but you don't want to pay taxes, so who's going to lose?
we could just put a wall around the U.S. and say, you know what, we're just going to do everything in-house. You don't have to pay no taxes, just whatever you make.
Countries need
And
the
even
United
in-house,
States. They're not
we
going
would
to
still
stop.
be paying high for imported goods.
Yeah.
Just
Like that
think-
was the case with like washing machines in 2017 or something like that.
Yeah, anything we import is going to be expensive.
It's so cheap though right now.
It is.
It's like we're the leaders. Everybody comes to us. So we're going to play like we're the leaders, or we're going to keep getting fucked. Because we're fucking us.
That
Simply.
part.
Like, we're the ones that are poor. If you go to other countries and they keep telling us they're poor, they're not actually poor. You can live so much cheaper in other countries. And, like, I see it all the time on TikToks.
Yeah,
You
can
get,
live
like,
in luxury
for like
literally
$700.
$5.
So why are other countries living better than us? Like, that does not make any sense.
Their tax system, if you go to a European country, you go to the grocery store, the groceries are cheaper. You go
And
to a
healthier.
restaurant and healthier, and you go to a restaurant, the food is less expensive, it's better made, it's healthier. You get a job, you pay 40 or 50% in taxes. And that tax money is being used to supplement and regulate all these other things that we're talking about we want. Like, I'm not saying that big government is good or bad. I'm just saying there's a lot of different ways to look at it, and there's opinions, right? We all think that I would think that most people don't think we should have no government. Then we'll just be a bunch of clans running around fighting other clans.
Correct.
You know,
Why do we gotta fight
it's
anyone?
Peoria versus Scottsdale. They're going to war with their guns.
Such a low vibration of thinking. War, fighting.
I feel like it honestly has a lot to do with what we're ingesting.
Let's do away
I
with
think
all
if
of
our
it.
food was
Remember
okay, we
when
would
men
be
went to
okay.
war and died?
Yeah, we can send him back. Go ahead. Take
Bye.
All right, guys, I just got drafted. How'd this happen so quickly?
We're going to be living in a utopia.
Yeah,
No more men.
Utopia without the men.
Yeah.
We're all
See ya.
fighting.